and welcome to this edition of our um, pre-meditation discussion. And I try to do that um, every week for our weekly meditation. And today, our weekly meditation is on um, a global constitution, a constitution for the earth. Um, I'm going to try my best not to stray too far into lawyer land. Um, that's always an occupational hazard for me. But a constitution is a legal document. But I think that a constitution is also can be a consciousness document and a spiritual document. And um, because we don't treat it as such, because we don't think of it as such, we we wind up doing what we do, and we wind up getting what we've got. Um, 236 years ago, we, meaning the United States of America, tried out its third constitution. Um, First one, really our first document that created us was our Declaration of Independence. And there were some very powerful things that were said in that document. Um, Powerful things that we wound up not being able to live up to. Um, and um, we wound up fighting with ourselves through the Articles of Confederation, which bit the dust pretty early. Um, our second attempt at making a government failed. Um, the first one didn't fail; it just wasn't enough in it. There was a couple of pages. We needed more to form a nation. Um, and the third one is failing. We congratulate ourselves. We pat ourselves on the back because we have the oldest written constitution in the world. Aren't we so great? But I think that it's the oldest constitution in the world because we ignore so much of it. We put the laws in place, and then when we don't like those laws that we put in, some other part of we put in place, just ignore them. And oh, we have to pass some more laws. We had no need whatsoever for the civil rights movement, um, other than the fact that we were ignoring the Constitution for over 100 years. Um, uh, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments did everything we needed to do. And then we just said, oh, well, maybe if we pass some more laws, we'll actually pay attention to the first set of laws. And now maybe we'll need a third or fourth set. But really, what we need is a constitution that actually works. So, what I mean by that, what I mean by that is we have to um, uh, understand that if there is any um, split in our behavior, our values, and the things we say about ourselves, that split will show up in how our society behaves. There's a fundamental split in our society around the issue of representation. Um, One man, one vote. But we didn't really mean that. We didn't mean one human being, one vote. All of those um, pesky women. It looks like my my screen is filled with pesky women here. Um, were we wanted to count them for representation so that we could say we are representing so many people. We didn't want to listen to them. We didn't ever consider the founders, never considered them part of we. Um, and as an African American, I recognize I am saying this um, as a um, a descendant of people who were enslaved in this society. And as such, as such, we weren't counted in the Constitution, except we were, because all of the states that did not want us to be considered citizens wanted us to be considered citizens for representation purposes. Because if you didn't count the Black population in the southern states, they would be the minority states. They would have less power in Congress. So that's when they came up with that rule that for the purposes of representation, blacks were four-fifths of a man. Um, you weren't a you the founders recognized that there are so many blacks, there are so many slaves in our country, our society was built on it, that if you counted all of us, then the numbers get scary. So rather than get scared, they just said, how about half? And then the slave owner said, no, we need more representation than that. And so they've settled on four-fifths. And that, I'm not talking about the numbers, I'm talking about the consciousness in your heart and in your head, the consciousness that says, um, you don't count. You aren't really here. You don't matter. Or these other interests matter more than you. That kind of thinking led to almost all of the social and political and even violence that we've been perpetrating against ourselves in this society. Um, you'll remember that some of you actually have not been here, so you don't remember. You haven't known that. And I won't go into it right now because it takes too long to go into it. But Commonway, has had a special relationship with the Light Center in Kansas, 100 acres of serious goodness, doing good things, and we have been trying to do good things together. This is near Baldwin, Kansas, in a rural area. Um, and it's an area that's about 5 or 10 miles away from where the Civil War started. Now, the Civil War allegedly started in 1861 by with the firing on Fort Sumter, and that was years after um, what happened in Blackjack Creek, where two very informal armies, John Brown and his supporters on one side, and some other guy and his supporters on the other side, started shooting at each other over the issue of slavery. Um, and I thought it was really fitting to be focusing energy of a new society on the ground where blood was spilled on the around the issue of we're not together. Okay, we are separate. We need to be separate. Our identity has to be separate. And then another side says, no, 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 we're one, and we've got to kill in order to be one. Which is kind of an interesting way of expressing one's oneness. Um, and so so our challenge now in the 21st century, having gone through a few centuries of this basic tension that erupts from time to time, um, being at our like lying right at our core, that at some point in time we've got to resolve it. And we thought we resolved it in 1865, comes back up. We thought we did it in the 1900s. It came back up, and then in the 1950s and 60s, and then it came back up. And at some point in time, it's going to get resolved. But it's going to get resolved when we not pass any more laws. If you pass another 25 pounds of laws, that's enough paperwork. That'll work. It doesn't work that way. What we need to do is shift our consciousness. And once we shift our consciousness, then writing things down on pieces of paper will make sense. You won't even need to do that once you have your consciousness in gear. Um, most of the traffic laws, I don't mean to switch your gears too quickly here. Most of the traffic laws are for people who can't feel the norm of the road. Okay, can't feel the balance of the road. I'm a fast driver. I'm generally driving somewhere between 5 and 10 miles an hour faster than everybody else. That's not much. I tend to lead the pack. But I'm not drag racing down the road. I know how fast the road is going. I know that I'm not scaring people by, zooming up their tailpipes or anything like that. Um, so some people are middle of the road. Some people are, yeah, I'm a bit faster. Some people are a bit slower. They want to take more time. I get slower when I'm on an unfamiliar car. And then there's some people who are driving to endanger. Okay. And those are the people that the laws are made for, to keep folks in line, as opposed to everybody else. Um, if they said, okay, we're going to suspend the traffic laws for today, most of us would still follow them. We don't need a constitution. We don't need those traffic laws. We're going to do the right thing with each other regardless. It's the people that won't, or the people who don't know what the right thing is, or the people who say basically screw you. I don't care anything about you or what you're doing. I'm out here for me. And the people who do that are um, the people who do that don't have a sense of being a part of a larger society. Now, everything I just said is true in whatever society you're in, with whatever constitution you've got, etc. We are on another planet, have a whole other layer here. And that other layer is what is it that we do together? Not we, the people, but we, the beings, the living beings of planet Earth. What is our constitution? What is what's the way that we act toward each other? What's the way in that we act? Um, what are our rights toward each other? What are our um, responsibilities toward each other? Um, I remember sometime 20, 30 years ago, I'm getting of the age that everything is like 20 years ago. Yeah, that was like half a century ago, but yeah, this seems like just 20 years. Um, um, there was a woman, a black activist. I know it was one of three or four women that I was following. Um, uh, I'm not a stalker. I was paying attention to their writings. Um, and someone asked them about the ecological movement. And this was said, thinking that it was funny, that the only right that a chicken has is to die, get cut up, and get in my frying pan. Ha 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 ha. And then that was the end of that. I didn't laugh. Um, and I didn't laugh because I am I wasn't particularly sophisticated at that time, but I was thinking, well, chickens ought to have some. I mean, like I should be in relationship with that chicken. Okay. Um, we have we as the children of slaves have had um, people laughing at us for a few hundred years. So not only was it that we were enslaved, the people who were doing the enslaving thought it was funny. And if you look at the movies, starting with Birth of a Nation, all the way back to, well, whatever's going into Hollywood right now, all of it is looking at characters who are buffoons, who are nonsensical, who are stupid, who are lazy, who are ignorant. And all of this is to justify one's attitude towards oneself, that I'm superior. Um, and For those of you who know me, you know I watch a lot of old movies, 1930s, 40s, and 50s. Black and white lives forever. And actually, unfortunately, it doesn't. Um, and uh, I look at the relationships between whites and blacks, whites and Asians. We have Charlie Chan, Mr. Moto, all these other. Then you've got the whites and Indians, the noble savages, and then the ones that are trying to cut your throat. And then white men and women, and that's another joking relationship. Ha ha ha. What makes you think you can solve this crime? Um, um, you get over there where it's safe. Let the men take care of this issue here, because that's what men do. Um, and all of that makes up your Constitution. How we see each other makes up your Constitution. Seeing, seeing your, um, seeing whether or not you even think of yourself as part of a society makes up your Constitution. And that's why I'm saying that if we're going to do a new Constitution, it's got to be we, the living beings, as opposed to we, the people, or we, the subset of these people over here. Okay. Um, I'm in order to do justice to this subject, I'd need another 2 or 3 hours. So we'll just take it right now. No, we won't. um, the uh, but I do have, and I think that you noticed, I hope you noticed that starting on the 19th and the 20th, we will be spending 4 hours, not in conversation about this, not me going blah, 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 and you listening, but us discussing together what goes into a constitution for the earth. One of the things, if okay, I'm one of the few people who's actually read the Constitution, had to do it for law school. Actually, I read it before then. It's like I don't understand this at all. You need to go through law school in order to understand it. And how do we have that govern our behavior when so few of us have actually read the document? Okay. Most people, all they know about is their favorite amendment to the document. If you're a gun nut, then you Second Amendment. And if you have trouble with the law, Fifth Amendment. And if you don't have trouble with the law and you're not a gun nut, you can ignore the whole thing. Okay. Um, but what do we almost 90% of the things that are there are put there because we don't trust each other. You have these checks and balances, you have these laws, and you have those um, responsibilities, etc. What would happen when we are acting holonically with each other? When we can know literally the heart and the soul and the consciousness of the other beings that we're dealing with, that we open ourselves to knowing that, and that we can be in relationship with them without being told to do so. How would that society even work? Um, when my I, native friends in this area, um, um, the people whose food in balanced times, we're in unbalanced times now. Um, when their food supply was salmon, it was primarily salmon, and they would in a month catch enough salmon to last their group their band, their tribe, a year. That's a lot of salmon. And they weren't the only ones taking the salmon out of the river. There are many groups who are coming to the Columbia River for their month, taking out their year's worth of salmon. And the way they did that, the way they did that was they caught one fish, and everyone in their tribe focused on this fish, thanked the Great Spirit for thanked the Great Spirit and thanked the fish for being there, for sustaining them, etc. By doing that every year, there was more and more and more salmon in the river. What you focus on, you get more of. Now, Army Corps of Engineers comes along and dams the river and destroys the fishing platforms and disrupts an entire ecology and an entire um, uh, ecosystem because they wanted some electricity. Um, now, they could have done it in such a way that would connect people, but they didn't. They chose not to. They didn't have to pay attention to them because they were Indians. Um, and that's as far as I can go right now.